Okay, let's talk about draft again. T1 JDG. T1, who chose what side? Who chose what side? JDG chose red. Okay. Okay, so the funny thing that I think is happening so far at Worlds now is that everyone is starting to realize range supports are OP, right? How do I make this like... Where's my thing? Here. Oh, there. Everyone's starting to realize that range supports are OP, okay? But there's two things going on at Worlds right now. There's the LPL and the LCK. So what do I mean by that? There's two scrim bubbles. There's the BLG, who weren't scrimming each other, right? Obviously, Weibo, BLG. But there's BLG, Weibo, and JDG. And T1...
Hopefully Wanna does some more
rumor has it that
performances.
T1 is not scrimming any of the LPL teams. They're not. Because they're scared of, like, giving away too much information. T1 giving them, you know, like, them being able to share information. T1 are scrimming LCK teams. LCK teams are actually coming out of break to scrim T1 to help them. I think I don't know the exact teams. I think it was like KDF is there. Do you know the teams that are helping them?
Pog, let's go, man.
KDF, LSB,
T1 Weibo,
and Genji. So, KDF, LSB, and Genji have come out of their break or whatever to scrim T1 to help them because they know that they can't scrim these LPL teams. You can't be 3v1 in scrims against three teams in one region versus one. Because if one team speaks and they know what you're playing, it's over. You're done. Your whole tournament's gone. So I think it's smart for them. I'm not saying that they would leak, but it's actually really cool. So this isn't just one LCK team versus one LPL team. This is the LCK versus the LPL. The LCK teams are training T1 as much as they can to beat these top teams that are scrimming each other. KT's there apparently? Okay. So, what is interesting about these scrim bubbles? Well, T1 loves red side. We know that T1 loves red side because of their range support ideas and, like, I don't know, they just love red side right now. But the interesting thing about yesterday's series was blue side won 5 games in yesterday's LPL series. Okay, it went 5-0. Now, JDG, I can tell you for a fact, because they're on the opposite side of the bracket, we're scrimming both BLG and Weibo all week. 100%. They must have been. They must have been scrimming them at least a little bit. But blue side went 5-0. So, JDG is in a weird spot. What do? Do you take away the side that they want? Or do you take away the side that you've been scrimming on or like you've been practicing on in your meta selection that you think is the strongest? It's a hard choice. So it looks like they chose red side. So they actually chose to deny T1 red side. They value taking away red side more than getting their LPL scrim bubble blue side, which is just, I mean, it's a bit of a guess to say that, you know, blue side's that OP for LPL teams, but I think if you look at yesterday, you can kind of safely assume, especially with T1 not being in that scrim bubble, that blue side is OP for LPL teams. Why? I don't know. There's a really weird meta flux going on right now at Worlds where, you know, you can say to me, Caedrel, why is everyone playing range supports now? You know? Why is everyone playing range supports? Why weren't they playing them before? Why is range support now the meta? But it's hard to say because the patch never changed. What happened is you came into the meta with Aphelios Xayah as the two most OP AD carries as trade-offs, mostly Xayah. And Xayah was tied to Rakan. So Rakan blue side ban Xayah first pick was good because red side would get Rakan denial. Yeah, Kai'Sa was there a little bit as well and Senna was there as well, you know. But all of these champions play with melee supports. You can't play Kai'Sa Lux. You can kind of play Xayah with the range support every now and then, or Aphelios kind of with Renata, but Senna with Tam Kench or with Nila, whatever, these champs need melee supports. So the meta you came into, you had like Rakan, Alistar, Nautilus, a little bit of Leona and Rel. Rel was slowly falling off. Leona was very niche. Nautilus, Rakan, Alistar were the things, but Rakan was being permabanned because of Xayah prio on blue side first pick, right? So, because if I first pick Xayah, you get Rakan on red. Not great. So, what does that mean? That means the only real ADs left and supports left were Alistar, Nautilus, Aphelios Xayah, Kai'Sa, and Senna Tam.
And the shy hugging and crying.
So what happened, I think, in this tournament is something that's very similar to what happened last year's tournament. Where Beryl comes out at last year's tournament and busts out Ashe support, Heimer support, all that shit. And I know some people were playing it already, but the Heimer was his.
Pog,
So I think what
let's
happened
go,
at this
man.
tournament is Keria plays Caitlyn Lux with Guma, and they play Senna Nila. And now you've put the teams in a really weird situation, because if you look at those games, and imagine you're BLG, Weibo, you're JDG, you're watching them, okay? I know NRG might have played it, whatever, but you're watching T1, who's now qualified for top
Pog,
4.
let's go,
You look
man.
at their games, and you think to yourself, well, we were playing Blitzcrank into this Nila Senna. We were playing Rakan, Aphelios, Maokai. We were playing... Eventually they went to range support, but we were playing melee supports, the meta, against them, but they were getting smashed. They were getting smashed. In lane, they were getting smashed. They couldn't play the game. Barring that third game, they could start to play.
Pog, let's go, man.
So now you look at it, and you're like, I'm JDG or BLG or Weibo. I look at that and I'm like, wow. So LNG, a team who I've been playing against all year, who almost won the LPL finals, played their engaged melee support spot, and they got blasted. Now, if I'm going into a best of 5... do I really want to play against that? If people on even skill level of me got blasted by this gameplay, how do I approach the tournament? I have a week. So that's why I think T1 has now shown their cards, but they're ahead of the curve. Because this range support bot is Keria is the best support remaining at Worlds. Maybe next to Crisp, maybe. As the best range support players. And On and Missing... it's a bit hard to catch up. I was actually surprised yesterday that On could keep up and played range supports. Why are you saying Crisp Cope? Okay, rate me the best range supports remaining at Worlds. I personally would say Keria, Crisp, Missing. I would say that Crisp is a better range support player than Missing. Is that a hot take? I don't think so. Why are you saying Cope? On gapped Crisp yesterday? No, the reason they got gapped yesterday is because what I'm about to tell you in a second. This is the reason that Weibo got gapped in bot lane yesterday. I'll tell you exactly why. So what happens? You're playing Nautilus Alistar lanes, you're playing Blitzcrank lanes, you're playing engaged support lanes, but you see Keria playing range supports and fisting you, okay? So you've got a problem. So now the first layer of the range support, there's 2 layers to this. There's the first layer and the second layer. We'll talk about the first layer, which is the Caitlyn Lux. Now, the Caitlyn Lux is something you can blind. Well, at least you thought you could blind, right? I mean, I don't know when Guma Keria played their Caitlyn Lux, but they played it, and it was disgusting. Who was it that played Caitlyn Lux? It wasn't Guma Keria. It was... they played Senna Nila. Who was it that played Caitlyn Lux and is blasted? It was... no, it was Weibo, I think, wasn't it? It was Weibo. I think Light was the first one to do it with Crisp. Earlier on in the tournament. Maybe KT or NRG? I don't know who it was. NRG, it was this one. Or Death and Kellen, anyone. People were playing it. They played Caitlyn Heimerdinger. The Caitlyn Lux stuff was coming out. I can't remember who it was, but people were playing it, basically. So when you come into the series as Weibo, you have layer 1, which you think, okay, Caitlyn Lux is super broken. You go into this draft. This draft it was. I think they first picked Jax, and then they instantly slammed Caitlyn Maokai and went Lux on 3. They thought it was blindable. But if layer 2 is playable, then layer 1 is not blindable. Caitlyn Lux is blindable, but if the enemy team can play Varus Ashe into it, you're going to get fisted. The way Caitlyn works as a champ is if you don't have push on Caitlyn, your game is lost. Fact. If your Caitlyn is under her tower, the game is already lost. Sorry, Sea Dog. Connor just messaged me saying that Weibo are going to lose to T1 in the finals. Bozo. Yo, fuck you, Connor. I'm going to beat your Suika record, you little rat. So when layer 2 comes in, they learned the hard way. I think BLG got outdrafted on bot lane every game, apart from a couple. So like here, for example, game 1, great. They win lane. Game 2, unplayable. Game 3, they didn't expect Caitlyn support, unplayable. Game 4, they could not do anything with this Heimerdinger because I think they got fucked, actually. Think about it. They played Caitlyn Lux, they got outpushed, and they realized they can't blind Caitlyn Lux. Then they thought, oh, we'll play Varus Ashe, what they played last game, because Ashe is OP, right? Nope. The next layer to that is we can play Kalista Caitlyn into you and get the push. You're fucked. Then they're like, okay, fuck it. We're just going to play Ashe Heimer. Oh, I'm going to play a range support that actually roams. And now the Bard's roaming, and the Heimerdinger's laning, but he realizes he can't punish the Aphelios because the Aphelios is farming on the tower for free because the junglers have to sit topside for this Quinn Jax matchup. So Heimer tries to roam. Useless. So 3 of those games, I think they got caught off guard really hard with bot matchup. And then in the last game, they played Kalista Renata, which was really good. I was really surprised that Varus Ashe didn't come out. a bit earlier from Billy when they saw things like this, but it is what it is. But they still got pushed in. So yeah. So the layers are really weird when it comes to range supports. And I think BLG, as much as their bot lane, Weibo, as much as their bot lane got blasted yesterday, I think they drafted really poorly around getting a winning bot. So what does that mean for today's series with this bot meta? Well, the whole thing I'm talking about now is why did the meta shift? I think it's because you go through the phases, right? You go through melee supports are needed, we need melee supports. Well, we can play some range supports like Renata Emilio if they blind a bad range support and we don't have Rakan. Well, if they blind Emilio, then why can't we just play like fucking Varus into it and just push him in? Well, if they're playing Emilio as well, we can play Caitlyn Lux and shit. Yeah, but if they're playing Caitlyn Lux, we can just play Varus Ashe. Oh yeah, but if they're playing Varus Ashe, we can play Caitlyn support. Yeah, but if they're playing Caitlyn support, we can play melee supports again with Jarvan or something. And we can dive on the Caitlyn support and she'll be useless. But if they're playing melee supports, we can play Melio lanes and Renata lanes. But if they're playing Melio and Renata lanes, then maybe we can play, you know, Caitlyn Lux. Or if they're playing Caitlyn Lux, then maybe we can play Varus Ashe. Or if they're playing Varus Ashe, then maybe we can play... You see what I mean? Like, oftentimes you have circles and triangles in metas, right? So here's a very good example. In jungle, there was a very easy jungle rotation where Jarvan was good into... What was this? Jarvan was good into Trundle and Olaf. Trundle and Olaf were good into Lee Sin, and Lee Sin was good into Jarvan. So that was a jungle meta like a couple years ago. You know, like Graves is good into Nidalee, but Graves and Lee Sin were good into Nidalee. No, sorry. Nidalee was good into Graves. So Nidalee was good into Graves. Graves was good into Lee Sin, but Lee Sin was good into Nidalee. There's another jungle circle. So oftentimes metas are actually circles. The more you dig down the meta to find counters, eventually you're going to end up back at the same point. Because what you're doing is you're trying to play pushing bot into melee supports, right? And the deeper you go to get that pushing bot, the more you realize that if you're playing champs that their only job in the whole game, like Caitlyn support, is to push, that actually if you just play a melee support or something and just get one kill on her or play some kind of Jarvan, it's over. That champ's now useless. So now you're back at it. So that's how metas work. It's really interesting that we've come back to the Worlds meta last year, but I think people and players drive that, and Keria, for example, is driving range supports. Crisp is driving range supports. And it's either do you match it or do you dig deeper? And the deeper you dig, the more... The teaser's out, is it? You're lying, it's not out. Yeah, this chat's so fucking annoying, dumb. Okay, so that hopefully answers some of the question as to why the meta has shifted. I don't know if it does, but there's loads of examples of meta shifts. You will always end up back at the same spot eventually. Eventually. You'll just go deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, let's take an example. Let's start with a jungler. Give me a jungler. Jarvan, okay? So, Jarvan is good into... Jarvan, sorry, let's just do counters. Jarvan gets countered by Lee Sin, let's say. Lee Sin probably gets countered by things like Trundle Graves, let's say. Trundle Graves, well, Nidalee's good against Trundle Graves. Well, actually, Lee Sin's good against Nidalee. So that's the circle closed. You can do it with any jungler. Every single jungler or champ or meta champ has a circle. Like Sejuani, let's say. What counters Sejuani? Well, Trundle's really good in... Olaf, for example, is really good in Sejuani. People were playing Olaf in Sejuani jungle. What counters Olaf? Well, Trundle counters Olaf. Well, what counters Trundle? Well, you can play Nidalee into Trundle. Well, what counters Nidalee? Well, Lee Sin's good into Nidalee. Well, what counters Lee Sin? Well, actually, you can play Sejuani into Lee Sin. That's actually a good matchup. So, yeah. So that's the way bot lane works as well. I hope that helps somehow with some like bot meta. I wouldn't be surprised if Missing, for example, today still plays Rakan because they're over-indexing so much on push that he thinks that maybe Rakan will exist. But I think oftentimes when you pay attention to these drafts, the most important thing to look at is two things. Number one, Jarvan ban. Jarvan ban, okay? It's so important if you want to play Varus Ashe. Champions like Jarvan, Malphite, Ornn, champs that can really fuck these champs. by like in team fights are really something you have to keep your eye on. So you can see Jarvan bans from Weibo most throughout the series because they want to play range supports, right? Another thing, last thing I'll talk about with meta is people have been saying top has a lot more impact this year. Now, why does top have more impact? Well, you can say it's because they're playing Jax or fucking, I don't know, Graves or, you know, Aatrox, right? Or Rumble. And you can say, well, they're playing carry champs, but in previous years, they're playing carry champs, but it doesn't impact the game as much. Okay, let me try and describe it to you why top lane has more impact now. It's because the meta shift to range supports. Now, you might say to me, well, Caedrel, if it meta shifts to range supports, then jungle has to play bot side for the range support to get pushed, so they won't give as much attention to the top laners. Correct. You're correct. Very correct. But what does that mean? Well, when Varus Ashe walk up to their team fight, who's fucking blasting them in the backline? What champs are destroying them? What are the champs that can actually 1v2 them? It's the top laners. Whereas if you're against like Kai'Sa Nautilus as a Jax or a Graves with a Maokai, you can't fucking move. You can't get on the Kai'Sa. It's impossible. But if they're playing Varus, Ashe, Azir, right? Bro, if Graves, Jax, Aatrox, Rumble, anyone gets on that backline, they are annihilated. So top laners have impact outside of the lane. Okay? They don't actually need resources. Play for the pushing bot. It's fine. We'll play in isolation. But when it comes to team fights and 2-3 items, these champs are really where the top laners will shine. So it's not as much about lane. Okay, hopefully that answers some questions about the meta. Alright. Okay, no, it's not out yet. I have the Lolly Sports YouTube channel right here, and I'm clicking home and video, because as soon as that video comes out, I'm writing first on it, and no one's beating me. No one's beating me. Alright, let's do a little bit of research about T1. Let's do a little bit of research about T1. What's their worlds looking like? What is their worlds looking like? What do they like? What do they don't like? What do they like? What do they don't like? Right, so they've banned Nico a lot, actually. That's weird. That's really weird. And Caitlyn, Renata are perma-banned against them. What did they do against LNG? They played Senna Nila. They played Ashe Varus. Ashe Varus was really good there. And they've played Varus Renata. This is the problem. You've got an AD carry in Gumayushi and a supporting carrier that can play Varus. They can flex Varus, probably. They can probably flex Ashe. They can flex Senna. They can probably fucking flex Caitlyn. They can probably fucking flex anything. They can play Tahm Kench Senna with carry on Senna. They can play Tahm Kench Senna with Guma on Senna. They can play fucking Senna Nila. They can play... This is the problem that you're against. If T1 first pick Ashe or Caitlyn or... Fuck knows where it's going. They can probably flex Kalista too. That's the problem with T1, and that's why the meta is so good for them. You have the level that you can play the champs. They have the level where they can flex the champs. And some teams had that level a little bit. Like, you know, the on-played Caitlyn support, right? Which was huge. On-played Caitlyn support, it got them bot push and it won them the game. Yeah, they can play Senna Cho'Gath, you know. It doesn't, I don't think they'll do that, but you know what I mean, right? So, what happens in drafts like this? Well, T1's against JDG. Now, what did I talk about? Let's look at JDG. Let's imagine we're... what is JDG? Is it just... Huh? Oh, it's JD Gaming. Okay. So, random guesses. Random guesses for JDG, right? What are they looking at champ pools for worlds? So, for example, the easiest thing that I've told you guys about, for example, is Knight doesn't play Azir. He doesn't. He plays no Azir. What is his music, bro? Okay, Knight doesn't play Azir. He just won't play it. Kanavi's playing... I also think I've been preaching Wukong for so long. I think this champ, when Varus Ashe is being played, Wukong will take over games. Wukong will destroy games. So I'm really hoping to see more Wukong. That would be nice. 369 still on this Renekton train, and I don't know how I feel about the Renekton train, but it's it's like the information situation. JDG must have had an absolute overhaul from the last week of scrims. They must have been playing so much different because look at the way BLG and Weibo were playing. They played 5 games of range supports. Look at what JDG was playing. They were playing Zeri Rakan, Jinx Rakan, Sivir Rakan, and Kaiser Rakan. So I can tell you for a fact, number 1 is the teaser's out. Okay, where were we? We were doing some draft stuff, right? Do you want to carry on with the draft stuff? Wait, let me find this one. Okay, someone wants me to do some mock drafts. So let's do some mock drafts for a little bit. Let's do 3 mock drafts of what could happen. Let's do 3 mock drafts. Alright, I'm convinced. What am I convinced by? Play the teaser one more time? No, we'll watch it. We'll watch it. It's crazy. He even played Silas into Jace. He's a nutcase. Okay. Okay. Now, I think JDG have a problem. JDG have a small problem. Let's look at their series versus KT. JDG. What did they ban? Did they ban Azir against BDD every game? They banned Azir on blue. Azir on blue. They didn't ban Azir on red. They didn't ban Azir on red. They banned it on 4-5. So the problem that JDG have on red side, so they're taking red side away. The reason they're taking red side away, use drafting.gg. I like using Google Sheets. I feel like this is like what I used when we were in pro play. I like this. This is like my comfort, you know? It's like when you have a phone that maybe isn't the best phone, but it's like your favorite. It's like what you're used to, you know? It's like your comfort. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so JDG have a problem right now with Azir. Why do they have a problem with Azir? Because Orianna is also a problem. Now, if you look at JDG statistically at Worlds, they've banned Azir in 78% of their games. Why? Because Knight doesn't play Azir. He doesn't play it. And there's a lot of good Azirs in this tournament. But if you look at Faker's Orianna against LNG, then you have to say Orianna's a ban, right? Is it worth banning Orianna on red side if they're going to get Azir anyway? Is the question. Because Faker will take Azir. Now, Faker, if you haven't watched Faker this year, Faker will play. This is Faker's champion pool for today, I can tell you that. Azir, Orianna, Nico. Maybe Sylas and Jace. And a possible Akali. Is probably what Faker's going to play. The Jace is probably the least likely. But that's his champ pool. You know, like, for example, Annie is not really meta anymore. Ari is not really super meta anymore. Tristana never really found success. His Corki was one thing. But Sylas, Orianna, Nico, Jace, Azir is what he's going to play. Akali could be a possibility the way the meta's been moving. But that's going to be the champ pool, right? So if Orianna is banned on red side by JDG, they're already pinching themselves a bit, which stings. Okay? Now, is Rumble a ban for JDG? Yes or no? I think yes, because I don't think that JDG also cannot respond very well against Rumble. Look, against Keen, they banned Rumble every game. So you can safely assume, as T1, that JDG's first 2 bans are probably Orianna Rumble. 369 can play Rumble, yeah, but he can't play against it. That's the problem. You can say you can tell me that 369 can play Rumble, and I appreciate that. That means on blue side they might not ban it, but he can't play against it. Is the problem. Because 369, his champion pool is Renekton, Aatrox, Cassante, Gnar, Ornn. That's his champ pool. And none of that is going to work against Rumble. And I don't think there's many champs that you can pick into Rumble. Like, blind pick Rumble. What do you play into blind pick Rumble? There's not many champs. You really need, like, Sejuani Jax or something. I don't know. Some fucking Kennen. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. So, I think you can safely assume JDG's bans are these 3. They're probably going to leave 1 ban open for a reactionary. Now, this could be a target ban at bot lane, because I think T1 have... So, it depends, because it depends how freaky T1 wants to get with bot lane matchups. Because what you saw yesterday was the way the series developed was that Ashe first pick was suddenly the most overpowered thing in the game, right? Ashe first pick was crazy. How much has Owner been playing Jarvan, actually? I think that could be JDG's last ban, you know. I think one of them is banning Jarvan. And it's a game of chicken on who plays Jarvan ban. Because what they could do is, like I told you guys yesterday, you can force bans, right? So the situation where T1 bans Kalista, for example, which I think is a very reasonable ban against Ruler, is they could last ban Vi here. Now, does that force a Jarvan ban? Or does Kanavi want to play Lee Sin into Jarvan? Or Wukong into Jarvan? Because I can tell you for a fact, if you don't ban that Jarvan and they first pick it, and then they're playing range support spot, and you don't have the Jarvan, you're going to have to play like, what, Maokai Blitzcrank? Who played Maokai Blitzcrank against T1? Oh yeah, it was LNG. Oh, what happened? Not good. It was not good. It didn't end very well, I can tell you that. They played Blitzcrank lanes, they played Maokai Rakan, it didn't work. So, you can take that risk and say, we'll try it. We're just better. Yeah, Kanavi will play Wukong. And I've been preaching Wukong for so long. I think this champ can win New Worlds. This champ, I told you 2 weeks ago, this champ can win New Worlds. Why? Because if it's shifting to range support meta and Jarvan is a B1 ban, just so you can play range supports, this champ will win you games. This champ will win you games. So I hope to fucking God, because yesterday no one was playing Wukong. When it has so many good angles, Wukong. So I pray to God that someone's playing Wukong today. Because I can tell you this champ's gonna win you. This champ could win you Worlds. Because what's gonna happen is, I think, if Jarvan is banned, then Sejuani is gonna be really high prio for Owner. I think he'll play Sejuani or something. They could also leave Kalista open and leave a Poppy open. So I think the safest option to assume is this is very likely, these three. What happens after that? I think it's very situational. What do you ban against them? You know, you could ban Tahm Kench. You could ban Senna. Doesn't really cover off much. What was LNG banning against T1? LNG was banning Rel, Jarvan, Rumble. So they were denying Jarvan on blue side, but then they picked it on blue side. They were banning Renata, Caitlyn, but then they still got... This is the fucking pain of T1. Look at this. They ban Renata, Caitlyn, Aphelios, Rakan. With Kai'Sa being picked away. And Xayah down. And Nautilus down. And Alistar down. And they still play a winning bot lane. They still play Nila Senna. And they could have still played Varus Ashe as well. You can ban Varus, Ashe, Senna. And then maybe you're fine. No, you're not. Caitlyn Lux is open, right? You get my point? So, you can invest bans in bot lane. Like here, I think T1 could ban Kalista. You know, and here they could really, if they want to ban Caitlyn versus T1, that's a very common thing to do. If I look at T1... all time, Season 12, I bet you 5 gifted subs, the most banned champ against T1 all year was Caitlyn. Okay, Worlds it was Caitlyn. All year it wasn't. It's because it wasn't meta. Okay. Oh, it was! Yeah, Caitlyn's a very common ban against T1. So... banning Caitlyn versus T1, sure. I mean, Gumayushi's Caitlyn, I think all time is... I don't know the exact win rate, but I think he's like 85, 90% win rate on that champ. All time. 85, 85.7. Yeah, it's one of his best champs. So, banning Caitlyn on red side against Guma is very normal. Guma is a god on Caitlyn. He's crazy good on Caitlyn. I mean, if you look at his history on Caitlyn, I mean, all of last year, Caitlyn was his thing. So, like, for example, Orianna, Rumble, Caitlyn, these are good bans against T1. Faker's Orianna, Zeus's Rumble, Caitlyn against Guma. I think this is, if I was JDG, I would probably run scenarios with those bans. Do I think it would win me the game? I don't know, because there's so many champs you're running into. You're running into Jarvan from Owner, you're running into Jace, you're running into Faker's Nico, you could run into Senna lane, you could run into an Ashe lane with Varus, you could run into the Caitlyn Lux is down, you could run into a Nila Senna lane. You can, like... You can run into so many things as JDG. So if I was to choose a side to draft for as a coach, non-biased, I would choose T1 because of how flexible they are. I think T1 can shut down JDG pretty easily in draft unless they show like newer things, just because of the amount of champs that T1 can play. So champs-wise, T1's favored. But team fight-wise, I think the strength that JDG has over T1 is their team fights are probably a little bit better. But that's yet to be seen. Because I thought that T1's weakness, actually, even though it was one of their strongest parts, was T1's early game was getting really weak. But that was actually used to be one of their strongest points. But now T1's early game looks insane. So it doesn't matter how much better you are in teamfights if T1 has a better early game from owner. Like, look at that, Rel as well. Rel's another champ that's annoying. So, yeah. It's hard. What happened in the KT series against JDG? What was KT banning against JDG? What was KT banning against JDG every game? So on red side, they were banning Xayah, Kalista, Jarvan. Yeah, understandable. I did say something like Kalista, Jarvan could work on either side. Xayah, Kalista, Jarvan. Xayah, Jarvan, Renata. Yeah, missing Renata is really good. Kalista, Jarvan, Wukong. Yeah. I think they blundered in that draft. Giving over... What did they first pick? Xayah? They gave over Orianna? I think that's where T1 needs to make sure they don't slip up. T1 needs to be very cautious. They need to make sure that Orianna is not going to Knight. It's not happening. They should really gatekeep his... Look, his Ahri. He's crazy on Ahri, that guy. See that? But they should gatekeep his Orianna. They really should. Because he doesn't play Azir. So if they can take Orianna off, then they know he's blinding Nico or Jace. Like, you know he's going to play Nico or Jace on a blind. And he's going to 1-2-3 it as well. Doesn't matter what side you're on. It's so likely that JDG will either 1-2 Nico if Orianna's down, or they will or 1-2 Jace. Very likely. Because if Orianna's down from then on red side, they could trap themselves on mid if they play like... If they try and, like, let's say Jarvan's up and they first pick something else, and then they pick the AD, I don't know. If they drop mid, I think they might be in trouble. So, yeah. I mean, JDG could play a game of chicken, you know? As much as I think these are the best bans JDG could do, if you throw a spanner in the works, and they open with Rakan ban, and JDG gets a bit crazy with it, and does something like... Something like that. That gets weird. That gets super weird. Because now, Ashe or Varus first pick is really good. Then they can play Wukong Nico. And now I think T1's in trouble. I think T1's in trouble. Because Ruler will just play Zeri on 3. Or something. Or maybe he won't play Zeri. What would he play? Yeah, probably he would play Zeri, you know. Because Ruler doesn't play many pushing bot champs. If Varus is down, he would play Jinx, wouldn't he? Yeah, he would play Jinx, I think. Yeah, I think this is bad for T1, for example, right? When they first pick this shit, they could also do, like, because mids are up, they could just do Rumble Wukong, right? And then, you know, or they could do Orianna Rumble, let's say. And then you get Wukong on 3. I think they're in trouble with the first pick Varus. They need to be really careful here. Here, they should first pick Rumble. But then the hard part is they get Wukong Orianna. And they get Varus on 3, maybe. Or maybe they get Orianna, Varus, Wukong on 3. I don't know if owner plays it or not. This is where it gets really sketchy. So T1 needs to be prepared for when JDG ban something close to nothing. Because these aren't 1-2-3 bans. These, like, T1... are smart. They're not going to first pick Caitlyn. Or, like, they're not going to... I mean, they could first pick Caitlyn if Varus is banned. But that's a risk. It's similar to yesterday where I said Rumble can be left open. If you first pick Caitlyn and you get matched by Varus Ashe, you're fucked. Unless they play Kalista Caitlyn bot. Maybe. Caitlyn is not a good champ to just blind. You saw it yesterday, right? They blind Caitlyn Lux, they get shafted. You need to make sure that Varus isn't up and they can't go Ashe support and you can ban out... So Caitlyn ban might not happen. I don't know, a lot of things can happen in this draft. I'm fucking hyped. But let's just say the top lane, you've got a player that can play Aatrox, Rumble, Fiora, Jace, Jax, Cassante, Gnar. And you've got a player... And you've got a player in 369 who can probably play Aatrox, Cassante, Gnar, Renekton, Ornn, Sion... I mean, he's been practicing Rumble in solo queue and Gragas. So that's the top lane situation. Jungle, I think they play both the exact same. I think they both play Vi, Jarvan, Rel, Maokai, Sejuani, Wukong. Like, they all gonna play the same shit. Poppy. They both play the same. Mid, I think Faker... Like, Faker has the Azir up on him because But Knight has the Syndra. And Faker, when was the last time Faker played Syndra? I know he can play it, but when was the last time he played it? Did he play Syndra this year? Okay, he didn't play Syndra in summer. He didn't play Syndra once this year. He didn't play it last year either. I know he's got a skin on it and he's really good at it, but he hasn't... He didn't play it the year before either. He played it once in 2020. Whereas Knight, I feel like Knight is leaning into Ahri Syndra. Like, every now and then, he can play Syndra. And Syndra is good into like things like Azir or Arena. So, yeah, he's played 2 games Syndra. Summer. I don't know he's played all time, but yeah. Yeah, 11. Look at that. You see that? Knight Syndra is really, really good. His Syndra and his Ahri are insane. So, Knight has this deeper pool on the left side with like burst mages with Syndra Ahri. And Faker has the up on control mages with Azir, right? Syndra's kind of in the middle as like a control mage, which is more of like a burst mage. So, yeah, I don't know what can happen. I don't know. Mid pool is kind of even. They have trade-offs here and there. You know, like, for example, how over-indexed is Faker in control mages? Well, actually, I think Faker was probably the only player this year that played Corki. He shamelessly played Corki in 2 games and played really well in them. And it was like a control mage. Against Damwon. He just busted out AP Corki against Azir. That's the level he'll bring out for control mages to match. So, you know, that's the indexes you got there. Alright, I hope that draft talk was fun for you. At least we got a bit more insight on some of the champs they'll play and the differences. We're gonna get into the games now. Holy fuck, it's gonna be hype. I don't know what this all says. I just want to open up YouTube. Hello. What about AD carry? I think Ruler is gonna be playing more hyper carry-esque champs. And Gumayushi is gonna be playing more control-esque supportive AD carries if Kallista's down. Like, I think, for example, just to simplify it, I think Guma is more likely to play Varus. Ruler is more likely to play Jinx. That's how I see it, at least.